EU leaders have gathered in Brussels for an emergency summit on how to come up with the cash promised for a second bailout to Greece. The heads of state are said to be considering a new bank tax to payroll Athens and stave off a looming default. But with Italy and Spain now showing the first symptoms of the debt epidemic, there are fresh tensions between the attendees. Squabbles have already broken out, with Germany pessimistic about the summit and France calling for bloc-wide unity. But as RT's Daniel Bushell reports, the infighting is continuing while the euro's future hangs by a thread.
The single currency will be dead within 2 years, warn analysts.
Within the European debt crisis, there's a really very serious threat now that the euro might disintegrate and that the eurozone might collapse.
It's already too late to save the Greek economy, according to a majority of leading economists and experts polled by RT.
Greece is really going down the drain completely. The debt is escalating, the deficit is totally out of control.
If I could give you the analogy that they were like somebody with a gambling problem or a drink problem, but the Greek people are not prepared to accept it. It's a cultural thing. So now we find ourselves with someone with a drink problem, but with a huge debt as well. And the problem will only ever get worse until you actually confront reality and say, look, they don't fit in the eurozone, they're not going to fit together with Germany in one single euro.
Politicians in richer states and their voters refuse to foot the bill.
Well, I don't think I've ever met anybody in the United Kingdom and in London, my constituency, that actually wants to contribute to the bailout of countries like Greece and Italy and to contribute to the continued existence of the euro, because they think it's a stupid idea to start with and it's just chucking money down the drain.
Yet pulling the plug on those states could trigger a chain reaction. Greece, believe investors, can no longer avoid quitting the euro. That in turn will spark the exit of Ireland, Portugal, even Italy and Spain.
Greece, Ireland and Portugal, everybody said, okay, the bug is going to stop there. Over the last couple of weeks we saw that also spreads with Spain over Germany, Italy over Germany started to go on.
Europe's top banks hold billions of euro in Greek and Portuguese debt. If those countries go bust, they could lose that money.
We might see scenarios like a bank run. That means that people will run to the bank in order to withdraw their deposits because they believe that the bank might not be able to pay them.
The euro's facing an existential crisis, admits German Chancellor Angela Merkel. But the head of Europe's biggest economy warns they still might not find a compromise at the Brussels summit. That's raising tension across the globe.
Well, indeed, there are problems in 3 time zones at the moment. The most visible, the most obvious is clearly the Eurozone problems. But on the other side of the Atlantic, you have the US economy not in recession, but showing some very weak economic figures and suffering as well.
EU leaders could sign the death warrant for the single currency here at the summit if again they fail to do a deal and halt the spreading euro virus. Experts fear public panic will take over, denying them control. Daniel Bushell, RT, Brussels.
Well, Germany and France have declared that they'll take a joint position on fighting the debt crisis during today's summit. But according to Professor Pierre Guerlain from the Paris West University, their unity is intended only for show.
If they go on doing what they did for the last 2 years, it's going to fail, because there was one plan, then the second plan, and now if they had a third plan of the same nature, it would fail. Basically, the Germans are reluctant to involve private banks, whereas the French president, of course, is more in favor of involving the private banks. That's on the surface. But I think everyone has to make an effort because the crisis is very serious. I think the cracks have always been there, and there's an attempt now to paper over the cracks. In part because when the euro was created, it was a rush towards a common currency with very different economies. It's difficult to say now if the euro can be saved, because there's a real danger of Greece defaulting.